Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for coming to our presentation. Our presentation is titled Fostering Leadership Through Project-Based Language Learning. My name is Ikuko Fujiwara, and joining me today are Jones Alea, Zora Washburn, and Matthew Johnston. In this brief presentation, we will discuss the definition and benefits of project-based language learning as we share a story about a course that became an inspiration and base of our research on project-based language learning. A large part of our presentation will involve guiding you through the process of implementing project-based language learning in your courses by introducing a framework and a template that you can use. Through all of this, we hope that we can inspire you to think of ways to incorporate project-based language learning in your courses. As many advocates of project-based language learning would agree, project-based learning is a very contextualized learning approach, and the meaning of project-based learning differs depending on the learning context. So that means there are many definitions of project-based learning or project-based language learning. But we want to offer you our definition that seems to summarize most of what educators say about project-based language learning. Project-based language learning is a collaborative and engaging learning experience in which students use language meaningfully to develop and present a project for a real audience. Through this process, students cultivate language proficiency, intercultural competence, and leadership skills. Since project-based language learning values both the process and the product, students become agents of their own learning as they foster autonomy, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. In short, project-based language learning is working collaboratively on a project that is real. And students gain not only language skills, but also content knowledge, cultural competence, and a stronger sense of self. If you would like to further explore the theoretical foundation of project-based language learning, we recommend Stoller's article listed on our reference. It provides comprehensive descriptions and summary of the various configurations of project-based learning in language settings that we find it very helpful. There are many benefits of project-based language learning, but here we will highlight the key reasons why we value this approach. First, it is authentic. The learning experience, the language, the project is real and therefore relevant and meaningful. The goal is to take the students and learning outside of class and make their experience connect with the real world. And second, it is intense. The entire process of working on a project and language learning experience that comes with it is intense. It is like a dream come true when students say they love this course, not because it's easy, but because it's difficult and challenging. And many students manage to go through these challenges because it is very collaborative. Students learn how to communicate and work as a team with classmates. They also have to collaborate with the teachers and people outside of the classroom. This provides students with various opportunities to practice negotiating and communicating with the target language as well. And considering all of these, it makes sense that it is very empowering on many levels in terms of both language and self-development. We will now move to talking about a course that follows the principles of project-based language learning.
Thank you, Ikuko. Now I will share about our experience with project-based language learning. Let me start with a little background. My colleagues and I teach in an intensive English program at the Richland campus of Dallas College. We have 4 levels of instruction, and each level is divided into 4 skill areas: reading, writing, grammar, and listening and speaking. While we offer 16-week courses, each level in the intensive program is completed in 8 weeks. Most of our ESL classes emphasize cooperative learning and are quite successful in our goal of preparing international students for success in their college courses. Starting in 2019, I decided to implement project-based language learning in one of my listening and speaking classes for 3 reasons. First, I wanted to see students challenged by interesting content that they dove into over a longer period of time. I wanted the classroom material to focus on one content area for the entire semester instead of jumping from content to content or theme to theme, week by week or chapter by chapter. Second, I wanted students to be engaged by meaningful and relevant information that would be useful for them in the real world. And last, I wanted to bridge the gap between our classroom and the wider campus community. Often, ESOL students have a great community among other ESOL students, but they rarely have opportunity to meet with the wider campus community. This led me, with the help of amazing Richland campus staff, to develop the Language Learning through Leadership and Service class, which was piloted in the spring of 2019. I personally have an interest in leadership studies, and my master's degree was in global leadership. So I chose this as the content area. But also, I found it relevant, meaningful, and useful for students. I thought it would be something that they could use in the real world for their future studies or for their job or career in the future. So Language Learning through Leadership and Service is a content-based and project-based language learning class which prepares students for a lifetime of leadership and service. The pilot program in the spring of 2019 offered students 2 8-week sessions of intensive training. During the first 8 weeks, students gained a foundation in leadership theory. They analyzed famous leaders, they identified their own leadership strengths and styles, they practiced communication, team building, and conflict resolution. And throughout the class, students practiced their English communication skills and expanded their vocabulary. You will see that language learning is foundational through the entire class, but all the things we do in class, all the content that we learn, all the projects that we're building towards, all integrate that language learning. Throughout the semester, students worked in teams to prepare for a project called TN Travels. This TN Travels event offered a natural collaboration between myself and this leadership class that I was building and some of my colleagues who were preparing for this event. And they wanted students involved in the preparation for the event, so it naturally lent itself to our class and our project. So students researched a country and developed a poster and a game or an activity that highlighted interesting aspects about the country they chose. The leadership content, vocabulary development, and language learning all built a scaffold upon which students could complete their project. After the project was completed, students reflected on their experience and wrote predictions for how the course and the project will help them in their future goals, both in the classroom for their education goals and their career goals. In the fall of 2019, I taught the class again, but this was only for 1 8-week session, so it was about half the amount of time. For this 8-week session, I included a condensed version of the leadership content. Their project changed. Their project was now to develop a digital leadership portfolio and present it to faculty and staff at a leadership networking event. So again, it was a real project with high stakes, which was presented at the end of the semester. Students worked collaboratively as they learned the skills required for the project. Then they individually developed a portfolio which highlighted their work. Students showcased their learning at the end of the year in their final project with this networking event where faculty and staff were invited to come and chat with students, and the students essentially had an interview, a live interview with faculty or staff where they showcased their leadership portfolios. In 2020, when we moved online because of the pandemic, we continued with a leadership portfolio as the main project for the class. The content was reduced to a degree because students and staff were managing the demands of online classes and the stress of the pandemic. We tried out a new technology called Microsoft Sway, where they built their online portfolio. Essentially, they were building a website to highlight their success and their portfolio, their leadership portfolio. Students presented their portfolio to the rest of the class virtually at the end of the semester. In each iteration of the course, students participated in mini projects. such as service activities, which helped them to learn content but also prepared them for their final project. These were natural communication practice kind of events, and they prepared them for the final project as well. In the spring, students gave portfolio presentations which showcased their plans for the TN Travels event. Students also volunteered at a food pantry and an intercultural festival event. In the fall of 2019, students completed a mock interview video, which mirrors modern-day job interview videos. In 2020, students created an encouraging collage and a thank you video for essential workers and faculty and staff at Dallas College. The Language Learning Through Leadership and Service class enables English language learners to practice the language in a rigorous and authentic environment through content-based instruction and with project-based language learning. The class motivated students and built connections between students and the campus community. For all these reasons, this is one of my favorite classes to teach. It's one class that takes a lot of time and effort, but I see the value of it because I see students have these light bulb moments, and I see students making connections between the content that they're learning about leadership theory and the real world, or the practice they have in creating a mock interview or practicing their speaking and then giving a real world presentation. So for all those reasons, this class I see as very productive, very valuable for our students and as a campus community.
Well, thank you, Matthew. Now, Zora and I will provide an overview of the framework so that you can begin to develop your own PBLL experience. We crafted our version of the PBL design elements based on the work of the Buck Institute of Education and their gold standard framework, and the work of Stoller, both of which can be found on the resource slide at the end of our presentation. For our leadership course, we focused on the 6 key areas of PBL: significant content, challenging task, student autonomy, development of 21st century skills, assessments, and deliberate practice of skills and language.
At this point, we invite you to pause the video and download the handouts we provided to accompany our presentation to help you develop your project-based learning experience and follow along. Please note that the colored handout provides you with an example of what we did in our class, and the black and white handout is to guide you with your own PBL project.
Before you begin outlining your project, you should know that the first 2 elements of project-based learning are significant content and challenging task or project. This does not have to be a linear process. When you look at the handout, it'll seem like it's a linear process, like it's a step-by-step process, but really it isn't. You can begin planning by either choosing your significant content or the project. For our class, we already had a project in mind, which lent itself perfectly for teaching leadership as the significant content. We'll begin explaining significant content for you.
So there's a wide variety of topics to choose from for your significant content. And we focused on leadership, and the questions that guided our curriculum were: what is leadership? How can I be a leader? And how can I serve the campus community? Your significant content may depend on the kind of course you're teaching. So for example, a grammar or reading course will influence the kind of significant content you want to focus on, in addition to the degree of flexibility and control that you have over your curriculum.
The key point to remember is that this project and content must be relevant and engaging for both you and your students, since you will both be devoting a lot of time to prepare and practice skills for the end project. For example, you can focus on teaching reading through mock elections or having students practice writing skills through writing alternate endings to a favorite movie or a book. Think about the tangible product, the audience, and how students will use their language skills. Also, think about how you will break the project down into manageable tasks and/or mini projects to scaffold skills and keep students engaged.
During the different iterations of the class, we had our students host a campus-wide event. We also had them create and present an online portfolio. We also had a virtual-only session in which our students created their leadership portfolio using Microsoft Sway. We wanted to focus on communicative skills with an emphasis on public speaking and engaging a public audience. We used a variety of scaffolded activities to accomplish this, like teaching the students how to do research, role-playing, team-building exercises. Games, mini presentations, or anything else that you can think of can be used to help students engage in content and help them prepare for their end project.
Throughout the course, it is important to think about the opportunities for students to take responsibility and initiative in their learning. Students should have many opportunities to contribute to the development of the project and the ability to make creative choices that have an impact on their experience in the classroom.
In our leadership listening and speaking class, where the project was the Tea and Travels event, students were able to choose their roles in their group, the activity, or the game that accompanied their poster presentation, the topic of their poster presentation, which was a country in Asia that they selected on their own, as well as the design of the poster.
As you choose your activities, it's important to think about the various skills needed to complete each task successfully. It serves as a great opportunity for students to learn new skills that will prepare them for the real world or showcase their talents. Think about questions such as what skills will be needed to complete the final project, what skills need to be taught and scaffolded, and what linguistic schema will need to be taught for students to successfully engage the material and tasks for the end project. Since collaboration and cooperation is a major part of project-based learning and a necessary skill for success in the real world, these skills should be emphasized throughout the project or course. When we're thinking about 21st century skills, we're thinking about public speaking, writing and editing, revising, giving feedback and offering how to receive feedback. So kind of think about what kind of skills, depending on which grade you're teaching, which kind of 21st century skills would be important for your students, and then incorporate them throughout the course.
The skills that we wanted our students to develop could be applied to an array of final projects. We required students to practice their presentation skills, complete diversity training, prepare and present project proposals, and record a video reflecting on their experience of the class. Finally, students learned to compile research and properly cite sources in their presentations. All of these skills help prepare students for the rest of their college experiences and their prospective careers.
While students are often focused on the product, one of the goals of project-based language learning is to serve as a vehicle for learning content and language development. Therefore, assessment throughout the experience is important. Activities and assignments that allow students time to reflect on and revise their projects will give them an opportunity to show what they have learned and incorporate the feedback or constructive criticism given throughout the experience. Because the product is presented to the public, most students appreciate the chance to improve and to provide quality work. Assessments could be traditional, such as written assignments or quizzes, or less traditional, such as weekly exit tickets or reflection videos.
In our class, our students were asked to give a project proposal before the campus-wide event in front of an audience of other instructors, academic advisors, as well as the dean of our program. In return, each presentation received feedback regarding what they did well and possible improvements they could make to their projects. Targeted assessments were also given to the students, including weekly exit tickets to check for understanding and a summative assessment at the end of the semester.
All right, thank you, Zora and Joan, for explaining the framework of project-based language learning. We do hope that you will use the black and white handout and take notes and really think through how you can implement project-based language learning into your classroom. And now we're going to spend a few moments talking about some tips that really came from our experience over the last couple years. So Zora's going to start us off with a tip.
Start with the end in mind. Choose your project and your content or your theme. The content and project should naturally fit together, like leadership content with a leadership portfolio project.
Next, you want to scale the project. Consider your class length, student level, and learning objectives. It should be challenging and complex, but scaffolded and not overwhelming. Semester-long projects usually strike a nice balance.
You should also divide the project into manageable pieces. Think about the foundational skills needed to complete the project along with your student learning objectives. Use the handout provided to help divide your project into parts while keeping project-based language learning best practices in mind.
Partner with others. So project-based language learning is a lot of work, and so it helps so much to have other partners, other teachers to come alongside you. And I know for me, it's something that I couldn't have done this class by myself. So a huge thanks to Joan and Ikuko and Zora for their help and the partnerships that we've had. And then also we brought in other departments. We brought in the Office of Student Life, for example, and our Multicultural Center. So partnering really makes the project more real world, and it gives students the opportunity to interact with a diverse group of teachers as well, which is something that is really great for the classroom. And for different students, they'll latch on to something I say, but then other students will latch on to something Ikuko says. So that diversity in the classroom is really helpful. And then students should be partnering with each other as well. They should be throughout the process as they're preparing for their project, when they do their project. The best projects experiences that we've had are these group-based service learning and then group-based public event projects where they get to work together with classmates.
Prepare for public presentation. This highlights the student's achievement, which is their end product, and allows students to experience a real-world context. A public presentation challenges students to produce their highest quality work in a high-stakes setting.
Take time to review and reflect. Teachers should meet regularly to review and adjust the course. You should also give students an opportunity to review and reflect by offering students feedback and encouragement and giving them self-assessments, weekly exit tickets, and periodic progress reports and other non-traditional assessment methods.
And it's really important to be flexible. Remember that project-based language learning is a very contextualized learning experience. So as you give students choice and ownership, the project and course will adapt and change. You may also find skill gaps that need to be addressed. So it is important to keep that in mind and be flexible.
And the last tip is look for explicit and implicit language learning opportunities. And when Joan and Zora went through the framework, you saw all these elements, but on the left side, you'll see where it says deliberate practice of skills and language. And we put it separately and kind of throughout the whole framework because that's what the language learning opportunities should be. They should be integrated throughout the class and throughout the process of the project. And we found that it kind of naturally occurs that we were helping students get ready for the project, and they needed practice in pronunciation for certain words or phrases. As they were getting ready for their presentation at the end when they were speaking to other students and staff and faculty, they needed to practice speaking. So we had them practice and prepare public speaking. So that was very natural to do. All right, so thank you everyone for participating in this presentation. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you are inspired to take project-based language learning into your classroom. Here is a list of sources and references if you'd like to learn more, or if you have any questions or comments for us. The next slide you will see, here's our contact information, and we'd love to get in touch. Thank you.